So I'm live for the 5th time. Let's see if I can get through this. The last time, everything seemed to be going well, but the internet just dropped out. I guess that's life when you're using Wi-Fi instead of cable. But that's also life because everything's Wi-Fi these days. These are all newfangled machines in... Get off my lawn, you sons of guns and funds and... You know, you probably, if you watched any of the last stream I did, which got cut off unfortunately, you'll hear about a lot of very personal things, and you'll also hear about the movie The Hunt, which is the reason why I'm doing this stream, although I have not really gotten around to talking too much about it yet. I will get around to it now. If you haven't noticed, my mind kind of goes off in a million different directions, and even though I am managing my ADHD under the care of a doctor, it just makes me able to sit in one place for a while without having to worry about anything. So here I am, I'm scatterbrained, but I tell you, I saw this movie The Hunt and I said, okay, I gotta do this. And I had this channel set up for a while, but I didn't use it because I'm a procrastinator, which some people call perfectionist. I just believe those are procrastinators because that's what I am. I think, oh, I need things to be perfect. This needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and then it never gets done. So I've been failing all day and learning after every failure, which is a lesson to you kids out there. Fail a lot, and then you'll learn something. But it's true. The failures is where you actually learn. If you do great from the get-go all the time, you'll get complacent. And I won't be complacent. I didn't say that I was going to be the greatest person in the world. In fact, this is probably very boring to quite a few many people, except for me. Because this is, as I said in the stream, which, like I said, got cut off in the internet with the Wi-Fi, but I said this is like therapy. And much more people just admit that's what this is. This is therapy without paying for it. I have a problem with therapy and the transactional nature of therapy. I can think of another transaction that happens between human beings for one emotional service, emotional in quotes, for another. And that's unfortunately how I see it's hard to get past the profit motive on anything. When you're opening yourself up and trying to examine yourself, truly examine yourself, which is very painful and very difficult to face who you really are. And I'm still learning how to face who I really am. I've grown as a person quite a lot since the death of my parents. And last saw my mom on election day 2016, the last time before she went to surgery, and then she had a stroke. And I was able to talk to her, but nothing like that again. So my past few years have been spent dealing with other kinds of real world issues. So the other things that were going on around me were just noise, but then sometimes they burrowed into my brain and I had to talk. And my friends love it when I talk. They say, oh man, you got to do a show. You should do what I'm doing right now, which is my own personal little venting cast. And they say that because, one, I do have interesting stories, I think. I don't know. You decide if they're interesting or not. I mean, some people may go, ugh, and some people may go, meh, and some people go, ooh. It's up to you how you deal with or interpret the stuff that I have to say. But I go off on tangents a lot, and sometimes I get very passionate about something, and then my volume will raise. I was born on 11, like Spinal Tap. My volume was at 11, so it was my energy. Makes it great for acting because I was able to project to the back of the house with no effort, no strain, just having to have one of those voices. And see, I'm off on a tangent already. How about I get to this movie? Because I keep in the last couple of streams, I attempted to. Of course, no one saw those because they all messed up. But I just checked to make sure I'm still in the air, and I am. So, where was I? Yes, movies, yes. I have to get back on track, and I have to get talking about this movie. So the movie's The Hunt. It's a controversial film, came out today, actually last night. And it was supposed to come out in September, but it deals with very third-rail issues. And at the time, we only had a description and a trailer, but we didn't know exactly what was going to be in the film. All we knew that it was one group of people going after another group of people for sport or for whatever their personal reasons are. And one side is the left and one side is the right. And the central character is literally central, as in Betty Gilpin is her name. And I learned that about the fourth time I started the stream. I finally looked it up. I was like, man, she was like the best thing in the film. And I couldn't remember her name, but now I know her name. I'm going to look it up again just to make sure. So I don't want to... and of course that music is this little thing I put together on Guitar Garage Band. Guitar Hero. I didn't even play Guitar Hero. Garage Band. Just so I can have something in the background, because the fans and just the silence sometimes is not really interesting to hear, and I don't want to get copywritten for using someone else's music, so just make my own. It's just noise anyway, right? So this movie was pulled because of the controversy. I said controversy. Controversy involved with the treatment of one political party's constituents versus the other political party's constituents. And as I said a minute ago, Betty Gilpin, I gotta make sure I'm gonna look it up. She plays the central character, as in she is the only one on the right side, if you want to call it that, because she's not. But by the way, this is filled with spoilers. So, I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to see this film. But if you haven't, you shouldn't watch this, because I'm just going to talk about it as if you have seen it. And there's something called just click off. I do it all the time. Right now, I think I probably have one person in the chat. I don't know, man. I'm not even paying attention to the chat room. I'm just because I'm just talking. So the film came out today, and they had this marketing campaign about. They said, watch the movie that no one's actually seen, the most controversial film, the film that no one has seen. And even on the poster I'm looking at it here, they crossed out the September 27th, they wrote March 13th. And they released it a few months later because they're either hoping to dump it or hoping that it would take off. And well, unfortunately for everyone, it has nothing to do with the movie, but unfortunately for everyone, it's not going to take off. I don't think any movie is going to take off, but I'm not going to get into that because I'm hoping that some people find this either now, in the future, or whatever, and they don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. And when I'm talking about this movie, even though it deals with third rail, hot button issues, I am approaching it from a filmmaking perspective or a cinematic perspective. I wouldn't say like I'm a cinephile. I'm not some snotty guy, even though I can talk about foreign films, in particular Asian films. Kurosawa was my directing god most of my life until I discovered Korean cinema. And now Bong Joon-ho, Chan Wook Park, and the actor Song Kang-ho, Hwang Young-min, Lee Byung-hun, Son Ye-jin, Jean Do-yeon, Shim Yoon-kyung, and a name that I can't say because when I made a video for my Korean channel, I used the actor's name and I got dinged because he's the actor who starred in, co-starred with Hwang Young-min in A Violent Prosecutor. So if you go look up his name, you'll see his last name goes first, Gang, and then his name. And it's those two words, one of the two words is something that triggered this algorithm, which has no soul. I don't know if people who are watching and reviewing these videos have souls either, but they probably do, if souls exist. I digress. You know how many times I have to say I digress if I really say I I don't read reviews anymore. I used to obsess over Rotten Tomatoes, and I would check the ratings and read the reviewers. And just in the past few years, it's become watered down, would be a good way to say it. I also believe there are some writers who aren't as well versed in film as they are in other aspects of culture and society. And then it got bought out by a movie ticket selling company, which is partially run by someone who used to work at Disney at the top levels. And so how can you trust anything that is being controlled by movie studios and ticket sellers? Do you really think ticket sellers want to not make sure a film does well, especially one they put a lot of money into? So I decided to stop looking at it altogether. I don't even use the movie ticketing agency that bought Rotten Tomatoes, simply because they put it on they put it out of the, you click on the movie, there it is, there's the rating. But sometimes I accidentally come upon them. Other sites will do it too. And if that ever happens, what I like to do is look at the audience score versus the critics score. And they use critics. I don't know what criteria they use to pick critics, but when Rotten Tomatoes first got started years and years and years ago, it was like, Roger Ebert was on there, and the New York Times reviewers. And I'm only saying New York Times reviewers just because I don't want to mispronounce her name. I know it's A.L. Scott and Magnolia Doris, something like that. And then there was people from the San Francisco Chronicle and the LA Times, and just the big papers and the big sites. And these people usually had, Roger Ebert in particular. He knew his stuff. He knew his shit. He knew his movies. And it was great reading this stuff, because sometimes you wouldn't agree with what he was saying, but sometimes you would. And if you did, then it was informative. But now I don't think it's informative at all. I think that they manipulate data, they manipulate reviews, I'm sure they buy people off. Disney has been known to pay people, I think they paid people in Japan to create quote-unquote organic art memes for Disney movies, but Disney paid them. They were told not to tell. Every movie company does that. It's stealth marketing, and it's icky, but what are you going to do? You can't stop it. All you can do is not pay attention to those reviews. But if I ever come across one, audience score versus the critic score. Now, back in the day, back when I really paid attention to the critics, there was a time when it changed for me, and it was a movie about Schmidt. Because About Schmidt got huge critic score, and my girlfriend and I went to go see it, and I didn't like it. That would be a way to put it. And my girlfriend and I came home, and we lamented about how the critics thought the movie was great, and I don't know what the heck was going on. And then I went to Rotten Tomatoes just to read some of the reviews to find out what part of their body was up their behinds to think the movie was good. And that's when I noticed the audience score was about 30% lower than the critic score. And this was About Schmidt, look it up, I guess, in mid-2000s. And then it became a rule for my girlfriend and I that if the audience score was 20% in either direction, that meant you had to listen to that other person. So, for example, About Schmidt was about 98%, and the audience score was about 70%. So I would pay attention to the audience score in that sense and not go. But I didn't know that at the time, which is why my girlfriend and I, whenever we mentioned a film that we were fooled into seeing based on either marketing or reviews in the past we had read, we would say we just been About Schmitted. So now I just avoid it altogether because it really colors what you think of a film. And in this film in particular, I'm glad I didn't read the reviews, because I'm sure if I had read the reviews, I wouldn't have gone to see it, because the way people market things, it makes it seem like it's just going to be, more of that same old stuff that's been going on in this country for the past few years. And I'm not talking about my parents' death. That was just me personally. You don't have to worry about that. I'm talking about the other stuff, and you know what I'm talking about. Stuff that's going on right this very minute. And here I am talking about a movie with Hillary Swank and Betty Gilpin. I had to look at the name up just to make sure again. So, because I have an unlimited movies membership, I decided to go see it today. I live a freelancer, so I can schedule my time around a movie, and I live a 5-minute walk away from the nice multiplex, a couple of them. So there's always something playing, so I can just walk up there, what's playing, and walk in. I love the subscription series stuff. I'm hoping they fix some things with their point system and types of movies you can see, how many times you can see them. They're starting to add restrictions that they didn't have before. That's not really cool. But I went in to see it today. I saw it at 2:20, and then I ran home and said, I gotta stream. And this was the first time that I've streamed something like this, where it's just my thoughts, basically relatively mostly unfiltered. But it took me 4 hours. What is it? It's actually 10 o'clock. It took me 6 hours just to get to this point where the sound didn't cut out, or like I made a transition like this, and one time it would just stay like that the whole time, and I didn't know. So now I know to constantly check enough, so I know people are looking at my beautiful face as opposed to a weird desktop which has my picture in it. And it's actually, come to think of it, if I'm looking at my desktop right now with my face talking, if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll be watching my face 30 seconds in the past, a minute in the past, while the other stuff is 30 seconds because there's a big delay, so it's a delay within a delay. I should probably just keep doing that, so it's like, it takes 5 minutes to, anyway, I told you I have weird ideas. I think it would just be fun. I think it's funny that, like, the non-stop, he's looking at, there's me in the window, and then the window and the window. Something else you gotta know about me, if you didn't watch the other streams, is that my mind jumps from subject to subject, and I have a quick conversation in my head, milliseconds, nanoseconds, where I jump from one section to the other, and it makes perfect sense to me, but I don't tell the people that I'm talking to that I switch subjects. And so halfway through the second subject, people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? So I have to learn to be better at that, and I think streaming this will help me become better at it, because although it is free form and I can talk however long I want, because I'm doing it because I love talking and I love movies and I love just bullshitting, you know? Because it's fun. And that's what this is life. You can take the most trivial things, but you should make something fun out of them instead of something horrible or depressing. Because, everyone's life is messed up in so many ways. And it's the messed up stuff that makes us interesting, and that's not something new off the top of my head. I listen to Joe Rogan and watch Joe Rogan pretty religiously, even except for the MMA shows. But that's how I was introduced to Doug Stanhope, who is my kindred spirit, really, after reading his book Digging Up Mother, which was available in public libraries, which is where I got mine. But he's the one that talks about, waking up to the silliness of this life, and how at the end we're all going to end up the exact same way. So why not just laugh at the futile ridiculousness of all of this and have a good time? I mean, because it's going to... I'm not talking about like hedonism or anything, but if you've always wanted to do something, you go and do it. At least try it. And then you can have the story and say, well, one day I went to try this. I mean, I joined the army basically because someone said they didn't think I could do it in so many words. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, well I'm going to give up 4 to 8 years of my life just to prove you wrong. I say 8 years because in the army, when you sign up for 4, you actually sign up for 8 because of the inactive reserve element. And, how did that happen? See? Keep messing up. That's why I got to keep an eye on what I'm doing. Now I lost my thing. I don't know how manual focus came about. So yeah, in active reserve, they sign you for 4 years, and I got out of the Army in '98, and in 2001, something happened in this country, and I was called to come in for a physical. Fortunately, I was very out of shape. I was in grad school, and they didn't take me. And if they did, it would only have been probably reservists, because the reservists were called up. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent again. That's going to be about my one-man show, which is about the Army. And I will repeat myself a lot. But repetition is the mother of skill, according to some very smart people. But you're not going to get much skill by listening to me over and over again. All right. Let me take a breath here. And we'll get to The Hunt, the movie The Hunt, and why I think it was a huge missed opportunity at a time when this country needs that opportunity, and I believe they squandered it. This isn't so heavy that I have to use two hands. It's funny that I'm drinking out of a gallon water jug. Well, I don't have to pour it into glasses and then spend 20 seconds singing Happy Birthday twice or whatever other song people are posting. Yeah, I've taken a break off of social media. My Korean Cine Geek channel's Twitter page is, I don't really go on it much. My Facebook is very limited. I have 29 friends, and that's by design. But as it turns out, that's probably 26 too many, because there's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions, and they're all entitled to them, and I care about them and I worry about them, but you get inundated. And sometimes you have to figure things out for yourself. And this would be the second break I've taken from social media. The first one lasted well over a year, probably close to 2. And that was when I was working out myself and trying to figure out how life was going to move forward. And I figured out some of it. And here I am. And I'm smiling because I can't believe how much I've messed around without getting to the point. So Betty Gilpin is the center of the movie. She plays a woman who you really don't know what her point of view is. You just know that she's there along with other basket of things that a certain candidate said about 4 years ago that caused a lot of controversy. It is a group of those people being hunted by a group of, I would guess the way it's portrayed in the film is very entitled and somewhat stupid left. Now, I use the terms left and right, but those meanings have changed so much that I to almost become meaningless. It just means that from the perspective of the film, the rich elites were the protagonists and the deplorables, I just said it, were the antagonists. Now, the reason Betty Gilpin, I singled her out, not only because she's a central character, but because she is great in the movie. She has this intelligence that she hides in the beginning, and then she outsmarts everyone. Pretty much. No, she does. She outsmarts enough people, and she wins in the end. Hillary Swank ends up being the bad person, bad woman in the movie. And this is why I think it just didn't work at all, because I don't think it had a proper point of view. In fact, I'm wondering what the film was like before it got released, because they've had from September till now to recut the film, and I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if they did that. They may have just let it sit on the shelf and just ran it as it is. But there was some weird stuff in the middle. Like there was about 45 minutes in, I guess, halfway through, there was a flashback, and then it went to a second flashback going back even further, and then it went back to the present. And I'm like, sometimes when that happens, I know as a writer and other places that when you start adding stuff in the middle, it's almost like to explain things that people didn't understand earlier.
So it felt a bit like something was missing, something was taken out, maybe something was added or re-edited. I'm not sure, but it just didn't feel like it had a point of view. Like if you're gonna do this kind of film, which I have called many times a didactic satire. I say many times because I've been trying to stream this for all day. Not very good at it. But didactic satire means it's boring as hell or just bad. When you're working with satire, it's the hardest genre to crack. Network would be the perfect movie example of a satire. Dr. Strangelove would be another one. But I would look at Network as a model of satire, because the ideas were blown up to the extreme, but every human behavior was proper and natural within that context, and thus allowed people to laugh at the absurdity of what we were watching. Because Network, if you're in a certain mood, you won't laugh at anything. And in fact, some people don't find the movie funny at all by the end. The movie Joker pays wonderful homage, whatever it is, to that movie. To Network. It might just slip my mind, but in that scene when all the televisions are on the screen and it pulls back, that's directly from Network. It was the end of Network, actually. Spoiler alert, they kill the guy at the end. And I don't mean Joker, I mean Network. I'm ruining films from the 70s. I'm going to ruin films from today. I'm just ruining everything. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. If you see this pink hat, that means a spoiler is going to come. So point of view is very, very important to me, because it felt like they were trying to not take sides. And by not taking sides, they made it just a very confusing film. And I don't think they thought about it that much, because the central character, Betty Gilpin, let's see, what's her character name? Crystal. Okay, she plays Crystal, a woman who's got thrown into this area where all these people start getting got by the left, these rich people who are there to pursue them relentlessly, using whatever means necessary, trying to stay away from certain words. And she bests them all at the end, as I said. She gets Hillary Swank, who is in charge of the whole thing, and she wins. But when I walked out of the theater, I was like, okay, she won. So what is this movie trying to say? That the only way to win is to have no point of view at all? Because you never really knew what she felt like. She didn't identify with the over stereotypical right, and she dealt a little bit with the over stereotypical left. That's why I knew they were trying to do satire. Everything is blown up, and she is the only sane person in this insane world. That's a classic screenplay structure. Either the whole world is crazy and one person is sane, or one person is crazy and the whole world is sane. Somehow it works. You can't have everybody be crazy unless you're doing parody. If everyone's crazy, it's parody. It's like Naked Gun. In this instance, it's satire, so you would want to have one side be one way, one side be another, and just play it as straight as possible, or play it as wild as possible, but in a way that's fresh and interesting. But the core of the film is Crystal. And Crystal doesn't have a core. Crystal is a person that we don't know about. In fact, when it's discovered that she should not have been a member of this group that got kidnapped and pursued, which was something that Hillary Swank paused about when Crystal said, hey, you got the wrong person. Because but I don't know what she believes. She was talking to a right person and was not agreeing or disagreeing, although she seemed to have a little disapproval in her eyes. But when the left were talking, she didn't approve or listen to them either. In fact, she ended up doing to them what they wanted to do to her. But she didn't have an opinion. So when someone wins, it basically was that nobody won. And I feel and this is just my opinion, that the writers could not give one side or the other side the victory, so they had to give someone who had no skin in the game the victory. She had skin in the game because people were trying to kill her. Oh, people were trying to go after her. But other than that, she was just like, hey, okay, I figured this whole thing out. She's very smart. She's like, boy, how fortunate they picked the wrong person who also happens to be fantastic with weapons and a martial artist and a brilliant mind. Something that you always want when you're put into a situation where people are coming after you. But that character was written solely to allow the ending to happen. Because if one side won versus the other side, that would have caused a problem. And if it was the other way around, that would have caused a problem. This time, it's like a lot of entertainment today. It tries to please everyone, which ends up pleasing no one. The funny thing that she did, the only time that she actually had a point of view about something and was the funniest moment in the movie, and by the way, these are spoilers. Blah, I don't care. Blah. No. She has one of the people from the left on the ground, and she is the woman from the left that's on the ground. She is she's not doing well. And Crystal is standing above her, holding something in her hands. And there's a guy in the room too, and the guy says, hey, to Crystal. Hey, don't do that. Not to a woman. And Crystal looks at the woman on the ground and says, do you think that you should get mercy because you're a woman? And the woman from the left, you could see in her eyes, she was like, oh, crap. And she said, no. And those were her last words. So it was a clever moment in the movie, and if they had more of those, or if, let's say, Crystal were to go after both of them somehow, because in a satire you're supposed to examine something, and this really wasn't meant to examine anything. It was like some of the people on the left, really famous actors. Dylan Baker, wonderful stage actor, and now a movie actor. Was big on the TV show House of Cards. And I'm vamping for time here because it's Ed Harris's wife. And I know some of you, if any of you are watching it, you know who I'm talking about. Oh, I can look right here. Duh. Where are they? Amy Madigan, of course. They were saying, they were being very stereotypical, almost as if like the writers were saying, this is what the right thinks the left is, and the writers say, this is what the left thinks the right is. And then they have the person who's basically Switzerland. Crystal is Switzerland with the ability to escape her predicament. I don't know why I'm so worried about censorship. I'm not trying to get. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because I love to talk, and it's a way to connect with people. Maybe somebody finds us interesting. So, Crystal, Switzerland, yeah, that just ruined the film. I was like, well, then you guys have no point of view. You guys are basically pulling your punches where you don't need to pull your punches. And you guys are leaning into jokes that you shouldn't lean into because they're kind of stale and kind of old. And, so you could say, let me guess. The left side, the rich elites, which that's what they call themselves. That side, they're very snotty. They fly in private jets. They pick the people that they do based on, literally one of the people was chosen to be eliminated because of a tweet that they wrote a year ago. And it turns out they didn't even write it. It was a different person, another person named Crystal. So in those respects, I feel like they seem like they're taking on some things and like, oh, they may be onto something here but no, I felt like they chickened out. They stuck to the easy jokes and they let a neutral party win the battle between left and right. So what message does that send? Because does that mean the person who is, for all intents and purposes, she has just as much of a morality and worldview the same one like the Joker could have. A nihilist. I mean, if you are just there and like, hey, I'm in this predicament. I gotta get out of it. Whatever I gotta do, I gotta do. And that's all you know about them, except for like, one piece of exposition where they tell a story and it's very awkward. I've noticed a trend that I used to do when I started writing screenplays where I would use the scorpion and the frog story, and I thought that I was like genius by making that metaphor, and it's not a metaphor, not a good metaphor to use anymore. I mean, everyone understands it. You can say scorpion, frog, and people will get what you're trying to say, which is why I don't use it anymore. In fact, in the script that I used it in, I cut it out almost immediately. But this time, the story was the tortoise and the hare, but they couched it as the jackrabbit versus the box turtle. I'm like, that doesn't have the same kind of ring. And it started off the same way, and then it ended kind of uniquely, as if like she was talking about herself. Crystal was the one that told the story. So that was, I felt like they were trying to do something interesting and metaphorical, but the very fact that they're using the same hackneyed fairy tales, and they're trying to mask it by calling it Jackrabbit and Box Turtle versus Tortoise and the Hare. And the thing that made it worse was Crystal was talking to the only other guy who was alive at the time. I'm going to look up his name here. I think I found him. Wayne Duvall. He's a really famous character actor. You've seen him in so many movies. Great. But their interactions are just it's almost like sad, to the depths of stereotypes that they'll play. Like every single point of view that what was his name? Wayne Duvall. Look at this. I'll show it to you here. Right here. It says Wayne Duvall. Dawn? Like what? Didn't they watch the movie? Can't they, know what? I mean, they said his name. I don't have it here, so I can't watch it. I have a great memory, but I don't remember that. And Emma Roberts is Yoga Pants. Oh yeah, that's right. She's basically not in the movie. She is, but she gets killed like right away. So if you're a Emma Roberts or a Glenn Howerton fan, don't go expecting you're going to see a lot of them, because you're not. You're going to see a lot of her. You're going to see a lot of him. And you're going to see a lot of a couple of the people that I'm not aware of. And Amy Madigan and Reed Birney. Why did I say Dylan Baker? Dylan Baker's a great actor, by the way. And actually, he's huge. He's been in like blockbuster superhero films. And he's also an amazing stage actor. But Reed Birney, he really has something. I loved his circle mirror transformation. Let me cut back to this. Circle mirror transformation was a play that came out in the early 2000s, and it was sort of like my girlfriend and I just kind of stumbled upon it, and it was a wonder. There was some great actors in there who were very young, who are big now, and Reed Birney got his break there. I think he has won Tony Awards since then. So it's got a good pedigree, and Hillary Swank, 2-time Oscar winner. But they barely use her in the film, which makes me think that they must have cut it. And because she is the most, she's the scariest person of all in the movie. To encapsulate that, they have they're discussing things, and Crystal, the centrist, who is actually they consider a deplorable. Crystal says, "Do you ever consider the possibility that someone else that you're wrong, or that you're telling? Oh, no, sorry. It was, don't you care about the truth?" Because Crystal was saying, "Hey, you got the wrong Crystal." She says to Hillary Swank, her name is Athena. She said, "Don't you care about the truth?" And Hillary Swank is like, and I'm trying to do it as best she can. Of course I care about the truth. The difference is I'm right. And right there, which that came at the end of the film, right there was a moment where I was like, whoa, this is where the filmmakers should have gone, but they didn't. And I'm not saying they should have attacked one side over the other. there was plenty of things to go after people on all sides, the entire spectrum. But I think they were trying to have their cake, eat it too, throw it back up, and then eat it again. Because the stereotypes were like, hey, man, every white guy was big, fat, and racist or sexist. And, thinking about it even more, it's a very muddled message. Not just because the person who beats everyone is a person who doesn't care about anything except getting out of there. It's the politics are very strange. Wayne Duvall, or was it Bob? Or Ron? Rob? Don. It was Don. Don with 3 question marks. Don would say these things that just sound so outrageous that you would think that, oh, that's what a commentator or a commenter on on a subreddit or something would have said. And I'm like, ugh. But the thing that made me cringe the most of all was that Jack Rabbit Box Turtle story, because he's listening to it, right? She's telling it to him, and he's got this face like, huh, oh, like he's reacting to it as if he's never heard it before. And this man is 60-something. I know he's heard the tortoise and the hare before, because I have, and he's been around a lot longer than I have. I guess they're trying to say, hey, people don't, maybe they don't read anymore. Maybe if we say Jack Rabbit and Box Turtle, they're not going to know that we're just taking a fairy tale that people have used 1 billion times to make their point instead of making a real point or taking our own metaphors and coming up with new ones. No, let's just stick with this. We'll just change the names and everything will be cool. It's not cool, because I didn't understand the point of the story, even when it got weird, because she starts talking about the tortoise and the hare, and the tortoise wins, and then the hare goes crazy and kills the tortoise, and it seems like it's a parallel to her life, but we don't know because we never really get into her life very much. And I think that's by design, but it's also a major flaw, because if you don't know what she stands for, why should you care if she makes it or not? So, and if you're going to do that, why even make the film? Because filmmaking should be bold and controversial. So what this film is basically just like Fantasy Island. It's just another typical ultra gory, and it was very gory with some funny gore in there too. I got to admit, there were some people that were laughing more than I was. I laughed at a couple of things because some of the timing from Betty Gilpin was fantastic. But I think it was a waste. It was a waste to release now. If it was different, and if there is like a director's cut that comes out, I would be interested to see that, because I want to see what they originally did. Having worked with developers, development executives, and people who produce scripts, I know for a fact that a lot of times you'll write a script that is people there that they go nuts for, but then they start to change it. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes there's some great executives that know exactly what they're doing, and you got to listen to them. You got to learn who to listen to and who not to listen to. But they do. And sometimes what you write ends up being something completely different. And I think that this is a case where, and this is just speculation on my part, but I can speculate all I want. This is a speculation that they had a completely different movie in September, and they thought that the mood of the country was going to be behind them, and it was going to make a lot of money. As it turned out, people found out about it, and it didn't. It got pushed, and I'm actually surprised that it came out. And I'm assuming it came out because they probably cut out some of the more tasteless things, even though I wouldn't know what those are, because there's a lot of tasteless things on both sides. There was one great missed opportunity. If you see, if you see here that the poster of The Hunt has a pig on it, and the only reason that is important is because the pig plays a part just in the movie itself, because it's roaming around, and one time the pig roams on this plane filled with the left people, and they all try to take down the pig using things that they hold. And eventually they do. They end up killing the pig. But I thought it took them a long time, and I thought for a second, why can't they just like not shoot them. Like the pig is 2 feet away from them, and they should just miss completely. Thus making a comment on how people who, if you've never used a gun before, oh, why did I say that? If you never used something before, you're not going to be a great or as accurate as you want to be. So they missed an opportunity to have them just completely miss something, because and that's what you would do in satire. You would try to make things wild, but you would also ground certain moments in utter social commentary. But you can't comment on anything if you comment on everything, and that's kind of what they were doing. As Crystal, the stoic. Sometimes I thought she was like a Terminator because she seemed emotionless, but then as it got along, I could see the intelligence and her working things out and trying to figure a way out of this mess. I just didn't know why, other than survival, she cared at all. Because, like, if you think about it, she wasn't supposed to be there at all. So does that mean that she was actually on the left side and was an accident, and she's only doing this because she has to get out alive? You don't know, and you don't want to do things halfway. You don't want to try to dip your toe in the water, and that's all you do. You never go all the way in. You gotta take a chance. I mean, I'm looking over here at this thing of Birds of Prey, or whatever it's called, Harley Quinn now. I didn't like that film, but I can appreciate what it was trying to do. It had its own style. It tried to have its own world, its own production design. I just don't think it worked very well at the end. I think they spent too much time on the production design and the style than they did on the story. But I can appreciate it. I can appreciate the candy-colored lights and the explosions and the moments that, they were fun, but the movie was not fun at all. I would recommend The Hunt over Birds of Prey any day, just as a film. But I don't recommend The Hunt either. It's something that you can watch on streaming services when it comes out, which I'm sure it'll come out real soon on streaming services. It's kind of a movie you can watch a little bit of and walk away. But it's only an hour and 25 minutes, so I'm sure you can sit in one sitting. It's not like the Irishman, where if you watch The Hunt, you would still have 2 hours left, and that would be the length of the Irishman. But yeah, I've been trying to, I've been beating around the bush about, the political stuff, but that's what this is. It was going to be a political lightning rod in September of last year, but now it's come out under very different circumstances, and it's a film that is milquetoast with graphic violence and language, goofy stereotypes, awful cliches, a very strong central performance with Betty Gilpin. I hope that she sees this at some point, because I think I have a great part for her in the script that is being developed right now. So if you're listening, give me a call, or just an email, or just a comment, and don't fake being her. I'm very gullible, and I'll probably believe it. So thought I was going to get angry watching this film, because usually when you watch a satire, it takes a side, and then you sit there and you have to examine yourself and how you feel about things, and examine both sides and look at that and go, wow, I never saw it that way. This film, you didn't really get a chance to do that. I feel that people who are going to see this film, they've already made up their minds, or they've read a bunch of reviews and have a certain thing. In terms of how my mind is made up, my mind is not made up. I certainly have a point of view, unlike Crystal. However, I don't fit with those people that they portrayed in the movie. I'm not into that at all. When I was in Bosnia, I was deployed there for a year, and when they were having elections for the first time in Bosnia, Hillary Clinton came to Bosnia. Yes, it was that time she came to Bosnia, but I'm not going to get into that because at the time I didn't know it. She came, and because I was in a MASH unit at the time from an injury sustained from a skirmish from earlier, And Sinbad and Sheryl Crow walked into the hospital, and she played songs, and he talked to me, and I was making fun of his movies, and because I love Sinbad, but so I was well versed in his films because I'm a movie buff too. But then I had a major who was in the Pentagon, and he got transferred into our unit at headquarters. And I say headquarters. It wasn't headquarters. I mean, it was headquarters of a company. So it was mud and tents. So I was not living the high life. Let's put it that way. But the major said, "Hey, I can hook you up. Hillary Clinton's coming in for and eat lunch with some of the troops, and I'll get you in there." Because I was going to get out of the MASH unit soon, very soon, like the very next day. They would let me out. And I ran to I didn't run to a phone. I kind of stumbled to a phone. My back was messed up and my arm was in a cast. I ran to a phone, called my friend in Germany and said, "Hey, go to the bookstore, buy It Takes a Village, and send it to me." And the beautiful thing about mail and the military, it's like you get it the next day. It's like next day air. It was crazy. It might have been 2 days. One day is kind of nuts. But 2 days, it really got there quickly. And he did. He bought it, and it was free. Postage is free when you're deployed. Another perk, I guess, to the living in fear and in mud. But I went and had lunch with her, and I got it signed. So I have a copy of Hillary Clinton's It Takes a Village. Does that mean that I'm the biggest Hillary Clinton fan? No. But I wanted to illustrate that I believe what I believe. I believe in good stuff. And by good stuff, I mean things that help people. And I try not to buy into propaganda as much as possible, but it's inevitable. And the only way to step away from that and clear your mind of that is to get off of social media and go to the movies. Now, of course, you may end up seeing a movie like this, where what should be hilarious isn't hilarious, and when they become didactic, like literally just hitting you over the head with messages that you really don't care about anymore, or they are just so, it's like some people are talk about America as if it's still 1869. And we've come a long way. I'm going to get off this topic because my belief is that we have a long, long, long way to go. A very long way to go. But some people, they just are not paying attention to what's going on right now. I think that's the bigger point. It's not a question of the time period or how things used to be versus how things are now. They're just not, they're not present. They're not aware of the surroundings, of the current environment, of how things are when you're off of social media. And I really would suggest maybe taking a week to a month off and don't wear headphones and just walk around your neighborhood. Go to the store when we can. And you'll see that things are not quite the way things are portrayed by the media. I mean, it might be bad. It's bad in some places, sure. And I'm talking about, I'm not talking about race or anything like that. I mean, like the current climate today, just in terms of how people are getting along, the crises in housing and all that. So it has all that baggage put on this movie, The Hunt, and they're leaning into it by saying this is the most talked about movie of the year, and it really wasn't the most talked about movie of the year. It was talked about for 2 days in September and then forgotten about until just now. And I still don't know what the Rotten Tomatoes score is, and I don't want to know, because sometimes when you see that, you're going to want to start reading reviews, and then you'll be like, "Oh, I disagree with that." And then you think to yourself, why am I doing that? Why am I wasting my time by myself? I'm like, if I were broadcasting it and I happened to read a review and I started to go off on it, I could see the point, because people might find that funny. But to sit there and dwell in it when there's no reason to dwell in it is madness. And it's very difficult to break free. And I know I have my biases, and everyone has their biases. I mean, most of my friends and we all believe the same thing, just in different ways. And it used to be the different ways we could talk about, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to talk more about that kind of stuff. But right now I've stepped away from, like I said, social media because I love my friends, and I want them to have their say, and I want them to say whatever they want to say about current issues, health-wise and political-wise, and I just don't engage. But usually it used to be like the people that I had, they would talk about their family and talk about their friends and talk about memories and stuff. And that's why I rejoined social media after almost 2 years, to find the people that I really care about and just keep a connection with them. Because unfortunately, social media, you need it. You can't. You need it in some form if you want to try to connect with somebody in the country or the world, or just around the street, around the corner. And right now, in particular, things are isolated because out of necessity. So people are now going to be more out of touch. We're going to take a few steps back, and I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about other stuff. But right now I'm getting too close to those other subjects that I'll probably end up talking about them at some point, but I couldn't avoid it with The Hunt. The film looked good. I felt like it was kind of choppy in the editing, which is why I thought they recut it. Hillary Swank was underutilized, and her performance was too calibrated. She even admits she's insane, pretty much. But she's not really acting it until, near the end of the big battle between Crystal and Athena. Some good fights in the movie. Like I said, and the violence is super gory, uber Quentin Tarantino, over the top Kill Bill kind of violence. But so that might get some people in. I think they made a mistake by politicizing it, even though it's an inherently political film. I think that they made a miscalculation. They should have just put it out on streaming as opposed to the movies, because it's just see, the problem with movies, not the problem. It's not a problem for most films. It's just reality. Films take a long time to develop and get made. So right now, there probably are quite a few films that cover this same ground, probably more strident than this one, because this one was attempting to be funny and failed mostly because it, But there's going to be others comes, and they're probably not going to do well either. That's because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people wrote these films and they started to develop them. So over the next year or so, we're going to see more and more of these films, and then eventually we're going to probably get back to as normal as possible, whatever normal is. I was heartened by watching the trailer for The Photograph, the movie with Lakeith Stanfield and Issa Rae. I didn't know I was going to mention this. It was I went to go see the film because of the song that was in the trailer. What if nothing ever will change? That song. I was like, wow, the way they cut that with that song and the editing of that trailer, I was like, wow, I can't wait to see it. And it was a disappointing movie because it was nothing like the trailer. They kind of hid one element of the movie, which was actually a large element of the film. Like they maximized the thing that was interesting and minimized the thing that wasn't. And then when you went to go see it, you saw that the thing you didn't want to see was a lot of. But I was heartened that it came out on Valentine's Day and it wasn't about politics. And even though everyone in the the leads and the supporting actors were black, but it wasn't about race. It was just about human beings. And I looked at that trailer and I was like, wow, I think this country is going to be okay. And I mean politically, talking about the last 4 years. I think people are starting to see that, hey, people don't necessarily want to see what they have to experience on cable news and with their families or friends. People may just want to see a romance. And, the romance was beautiful. And those two actors Lakeith, I mean, Issa Rae is, she's, I mean, that there's a movie coming out of hers in April with the big sick actor. I really have to look these names up, and I'm not going to pronounce his name because I will butcher it. I'm probably butchering everyone's name. But Lakeith Stanfield is someone that I've had my eye on in terms of, like, I think this guy's going places. Issa Rae's going to go her own places too, but I mean, like, she's going to be the comedian because I know she did Insecure on HBO. I didn't see it because I don't watch HBO really, but I know that she's great. I mean, her acting in the movie was top notch, and Lakeith, which she had great to work with. If you ever seen the movie Sorry to Bother You, was Lakeith Stanfield. The first time I saw him, like, or became aware of him, and then he had a great part in Uncut Gems, and now this one. He has a kind of gravitas to his acting. And then he also has this lightness. It's just it's hard to describe, but if you've seen any of those films, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm just happy to see more and more films that don't have political hot buttons in them, especially when it could have, but it didn't. It was trying to focus on just human beings falling in love, dealing with family, you know. So that was a very nice moment for me. It was like, oh, good, a Valentine's Day film. And, you know, every year, because it's, you know, African American History Month, as Chris Rock said, it's the coldest month of the year, so they can't have a parade. By the way, I'm butchering his jokes, too. Like it was like Us, Black Panther, and Get Out. I mean, no, it was Get Out, Black Panther, and then The Photograph. And those were the three films. And so Get Out, wow, it hit. It was like the zeitgeist film. It was the Joker of its time in terms of, like, hitting the current mood of the country and just took off. And then Black Panther, same thing. Boom, took off. But both films were politically tinged. The Get Out, a lot more than Black Panther, although they dealt with two issues. Black Panther was immigration, Get Out was race. And then this year, Photograph. And I think it's because sometimes people go to movies because they're fatigued about the problems that they face in their real lives and the problems they're facing at work and just with relationships. And sometimes they just want to go and have a nice, fun time at the movies. For example, I saw Bloodshot yesterday, and that was just a fun time at the movies. It was mindless fun. Vin Diesel just shows how much he can't act. Guy Pearce, of course, is now picking up paychecks. This brilliant actor, and but the special effects were great. The action sequences were fun. It was funny, and it was fast paced. And I'm like, all right, this is a great. It was a good time at the movies. I'm having a good time, and you know, now I'm just gonna forget about it. Sometimes I do like to see films that really make me think, and I thought The Hunt was gonna possibly either make me really mad or make me laugh all the time and found it was the greatest thing ever, but it's right in the middle, which means it's really, really, really bad. You see, if you're still watching or looking at Rotten Tomatoes and you see a movie that scores like 0% or 2 or 6, sometimes those films are really, really good. It's just that somehow the critics really got turned off by it. And then, of course, there are some films that the critics love. Parasite being one of them, got 99%. If you have ever read Rotten Tomatoes, and the reason I know Parasite got 99% is because it was all over television. Sometimes those films, everyone agrees. Audiences and critics agree. And that's doesn't happen all the time. It's kind of rare. It's like movie Joker, right? Got 68% because that was plastered everywhere too. As much as I don't read Rotten Tomatoes, I still know an awful lot about them because it's really hard to avoid them. They're at the top of everything, and that's what should make you go, I'm not going to listen to that anymore. And actually, does anybody even think about like the quotes on the poster anymore? I wonder how much a quote from a critic matters, because most people don't even know the critics. They could just be anybody on any website. It doesn't matter. So how is that? How is okay, Deadline. I read Deadline because I pay attention to box office and I want to know what's going on in the movie industry. And they review films, but I don't know the names of the people. I know the names of the people of the New York Times and such, but I don't know if that plays any part anymore. And I suspect that Parasite actually got a fighting chance because it won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. But I don't even know if that helps. I mean, you see so many films that come out, especially the smaller films, and they have these quotes from things you don't even recognize, and then of course you have those in parentheses, official selection at the Berlin Film Festival. Well, that means nothing. That means congratulations, you have been accepted to the Berlin Film Festival. That's not nothing, granted. But they didn't win anything, whatever film that was. And there's some of them that have like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 of those parentheses things for the, the Golden Lion and the blah, blah, blah. Of course, I know all these things because I love movies and I try to keep up with it. But do they really sell it? I mean, I don't think that the critics do. I mean, and I was watching a commercial the other day for a film. I can't remember what it was, but every quote, started with like 3 with ellipses, which means that they couldn't say the whole sentence, which usually means that the sentence is probably not so good, and they found like the good parts of the sentence, and they use that to pretend that the critics love. The critics agree, and then they don't agree. But it says so on the poster. I wonder how much posters at movie theaters play in the film's bottom line. Sometimes posters are really cool. I mean, I got Bohemian Rhapsody and Parasite in. Love them. They look wonderful. I was going to see that movie anyway, and I was definitely going to see that movie anyway. I don't know if someone would walk by who speaks Korean would look at that and go, oh my God. Unless you're a Freddie Mercury fan. I mean, granted, this one was huge. Both films are huge, but this one was like a monster. But it wasn't the poster. It was the music and the man that brought people in. An event. And so when you see a poster that is filled with pull quotes, that's what they're called, pull quote. You pull them from an article or a press release or a blog or whatever. Vlog, whatever you want to call them. Hey man, I'm hip. I know the terminology. No, I just don't see. They need to like find a way to reallocate funds for these movies because they're spending all this money on marketing, and a lot of that marketing is dependent upon social media marketing. If you were to pull up Deadline, deadline.com, which covers all kinds of Hollywood stuff, and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, it's just. I have so many things to say about this. But hey, why should I stop? I feel like Jeff Goldblum now. That's. That's just Jeff Goldblum sort of like, hey, I'm kind of lost. I'm kind of like unaware of what's going on, but I'm a very sexy man and I will get all the girls in my movies, but I'm just like totally oblivious to it. Oh, look, here's a piano. Let me just play some jazz. I love Jeff Goldblum. I saw him on stage for the play The Pillow Man in New York. Stunning. I had thought he was going to stink up the place, but because opposite Billy Crudup and Zelka Ivanchik, I think that's his name, Oz. He was, these guys were just tearing it up, and it was a great play too. But yeah, Jeff Goldblum is great. I don't know why I thought about Jeff Goldblum because he has that thing where he's like, I'm looking for a word, and I use the Meisner technique, so I don't know what I'm gonna say based on your reaction. But I can't understand why I'm saying this. I speak very fast because I'm Jeff Goldblum. No. I could say more about The Hunt, but I think I've said enough. Great central performance, a couple of really good laughs, but a total misfire overall. See, the sum is far from any of its parts. Hour and 25 minutes doesn't give you any time to establish anything, so it really just becomes a shoot 'em up kind of like survival thriller with cliches in it. I mean, if you go back and look at movies from the 90s, early 90s, Steven Seagal films, which I saw all of the Steven Seagal films when they came out opening day. Didn't matter. I was there. Saw all of them. As horrible as they were, some of them were. As horrible as some of them were, I saw them all. But the same kind of cliches and stereotypes are in those movies, and it just reminded me of that. And I'm like, you guys are moving backwards, but you probably think you're moving forwards. And the filmmakers probably think they're going to start a conversation, and I am talking about it. But by conversation, I mean you go and see that film with your friends, and you go out to a bar or a diner or whatever, coffee shop. I could go on, Tabernacle, whatever. Can't get on those right now. But and you discuss the film, as in like people are going to have different points of view about it, and you're like, no, I saw this. Well, this film laid it out for everyone, and it laid out all 3 points to the extreme, including the, for lack of a better word, the nihilistic person who came out on top at the end. And I think that message sends that we are screwed no matter what we do. Now, in some forms, metaphysically or whatever, that's certainly true. But it's not something that you would want to hang a film's theme on. I mean, we want... now I got to wash my hands. Now that's all I'm thinking about is watching. My computer just went out. You know what? I have to take a quick break, so I'm going to step aside for a second, and I'll be back in just a few seconds. Yep. All right. I'll tell you what that is in a second. I'll take it. I'm sure you heard that. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know. Now, what I have here, I'll show you this because this allows me when I'm doing things in my office, because this is where I write and do my stuff, whatever it is I do. Oh, let me turn this down. Is this. That way, when I'm thinking, or I'm taking a quick break, if I can't go out for a walk, if it's raining or something, I just sit there and lift the weights, or, as much weight as possible. That's right. Because I have scatterbrained sometimes with my ADHD, diagnosed for sure. Now that I'm been under the care of a doctor, that sounds awful, but I have a psychiatrist, and it's been a miracle worker. There are other things too. There are a couple of components to it, but in fact, one of them are these things right here and these things right here. I used to bite my nails really bad. I don't anymore. I haven't in months. I've quit in the past, but usually just lasts a month, and I would just go right back to it. these things here, there's a bicycle chain. You just sit there and play with them. It's fidget cubes. I got fidget cubes back in 2016. Like I was one of the first from the ANSI labs or something like that. It was like a wonder because it focused me almost immediately. I was like, why aren't people using these? And at first it was the spinners, and then it was the cubes, and then the spinners. And I got the spinners, and the spinners back then were nice and heavy. They were made with like real materials as opposed to 3D printing. So once I discovered these, I have something to do with my hands. And I watch movies like this, and I can't write like this because I need my hands. But when I'm thinking, I have this where I can lift these things over my head, stand up, go for a walk. Luckily, it's really close to spring, so I'll be doing more and more walks across the bridge into Manhattan. It's not that far of a walk, and it's good for you. At least that's what I hear. There is something about the hunt that I didn't talk about yet because I'm like, oh, do I really want to give away all the plot points? I'm like, yeah, screw it. Give away the plot points. So this is like the end of the film when Athena, Hillary Swank, and Betty Gilpin, who plays Crystal, they square off, and it's Athena's whole thing. It's her deal. She has the manor, as they call it, manor. She has something, a mansion kind of area, and she has set up to go after this group of people, and it come to find out that the reason that these people were chosen in particular was because they tweeted about a conspiracy that Hillary Swank said is a total lie. But the problem is, Hillary Swank is saying it's a total lie to Crystal, who has been pursued with relentlessness. I'm trying to come up with a better way about using the V word, Violence. I hope I spelled that right. That the whole reason that it happened was because they said it. And it wasn't true when they said it, and it was a conspiracy. So they had to, Hillary Swank, in Hillary Swank's mind, she had to do this because, well, they already said that we were going to do it, so now we had to stop them. So in Hillary Swank's mind, she was just trying to stop these people from talking about lies on the internet, and she would go about it by doing the very thing that they are supposedly accusing her wrongly of. That was very confusing to me because it seemed like every once in a while I was like, okay, maybe there's a point of view coming, but then something like that would happen. It would just pull the rug out from under everything. It basically absolves Hillary Swank and everyone else in that movie from anything that they did because, it was Crystal's fault. But if you think about it, and you hope you've seen the film. If you haven't, don't. Just listen to me. But the Crystal, she didn't even tweet that stuff out. She didn't even talk about this conspiracy about rich people hunting deplorables. She didn't. It wasn't even her. So when Hillary Swank says that, it's like, well, wait a second, though. You're going after the wrong person, and I see that was going after the wrong person was a very interesting plot point, and I was like, oh, this could be good. But then it was just kind of thrown away because Hillary Swank was basically like, I don't care, you're awful. I don't believe you. It's like I'm right. So I mean, it's your fault. That's the classic villain thing, right? It's your fault. I did this. And it is really messed up logic that Hillary Swank says the only reason that we are hunting you is because you said that we were hunting you. And that was a lie. So we had to keep you quiet. And the only way to keep you quiet was somehow do the exact thing that I'm now claiming I had no intention of ever doing. And then you have the, for lack of a better word, nihilist in the middle. And I'm like, she doesn't care. She's there by accident. And, Hillary Swank pauses for the briefest of seconds when she says it's not her. And then there's a scene where Hillary Swank is about to leave the planet. Yes, major spoilers. I told you, been telling you over and over again. And Hillary Swank asked the question, hey, Are you really not the right person? And Crystal says, no, ma'am, I'm not. And Crystal fakes her own death until Hillary Swank dies, and then she gets up and lives another day. And there's more to it than that, because like they're just on a foreign land, because I guess you can't do what they did on on American soil. They really shouldn't be able to do what they did on any soil. For some reason, they think you can do anything in Romania. I feel Romania and those places get like such a bad rap, as in like anything goes here. Well, if you take a look at our country, anything goes here. So, but I mean, I understand everyone's got to find an enemy, and we've gone all around the world with our movie enemies, either at home, mostly minorities, and then we would go to Russians. Luckily, for the Cold War, it was Russia. There were so many Russian Cold War buddy cop films. Red Heat, I think it was, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Belushi. Boy, what a winner that was. If you want to see a very funny Arnold Schwarzenegger film, and funny unintentionally, go to Prime or wherever and look up Raw Deal, Rawdeal. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger going undercover into the Italian mob with his accent. I got them to go, they were spies or something. I mean, and he's supposed to be an Italian guy, and they're supposed to believe him. He's this enormous dude. I am here to help you for this. I mean, that was French, but Arnold's. See you at the party, Richter. I used to be able to do it better, but Raw Deal, hilarious to hear him talk, and you think that he's fooling the mob into thinking he's like one of them. I'm like, yeah, it's just some weird Austrian dude, and you should check it out. Anyway, the Cold War brought us the Russians. And, in fact, the movie Red Dawn was about, with the Patrick Swayze version of Red Dawn, which was like a cultural moment in the 80s, about the Russians invading the United States. And they did a remake where North Korea invaded the United States, and it didn't do nearly as well, probably because we weren't in a Cold War with North Korea, and we were deep in a Cold War with Russia. So those are just enemies over the history of movie enemies over the years, and Romania and Eastern Europe is the favorite now. They're not Russians, but they're not Europeans, whatever that means. I wonder who's next. I'm sure someone will. It's cyclical now. You can't be someone's punching bag too long. People will get tired of it. I'm talking about movie structure only. I'm not talking about real life. I'm not talking about, I'm tired of this person's point of view or whatever. I mean, when they sit down and think about, okay, well, who's going to be who are the bad guys in this, right? And so the writers come up with it, and they may have come up with a completely different country, but whatever's happening at the time, the executives, they may say, oh, no, let's make them this whatever. And because one of our allies hates that country, so we should use that because we can use their hatred to get our movies into their theaters. While I'm on the subject of movie theaters, I am not a fan of Hollywood making films that appeal to foreign markets far more than us. And I'm not saying that because I'm xenophobic. I was the biggest cheerleader for Parasite ever. I think that film blew almost every other movie away last year. Joker came pretty close. I'm a champion of international films. I shouldn't call them foreign anymore. They're international. And I'm learning Korean specifically to help with subtitling and to work with them. I'm crafting a new screenplay based around my favorite Korean actors, but it's taking place in America. It's very weird. I have a very weird sensibility when it comes to writing. There's only one script I wrote that was considered straight drama, and the other ones are either action comedy, action thriller, or just very strange dark thrillers. But that's just it. When you always have to come up with the bad guy. For me, I'm not dealing internationally, My scripts have always taken place within the country. That's probably going to change, but right now it just takes place in the country. So I deal with like usually one villain. In a couple of films, the villain is the person themselves because they're dealing with some psychological problems. But yeah, so right now, The Hunt probably thought that the stereotypical deplorables would be the great bad guy, and thus make the horrible people on the left. And they are horrible. But look, the people, the dialogue from the people on the right, the old white men, railing about everything, and get out. Nobody said get off my lawn. Although I think that should have been in there. It would have been really funny. But it was just tired and tiresome. Enough moments that I was like, okay, I got through without throwing anything at the screen. Never done that, by the way. Because I can't imagine doing that. I love movie theaters. Why would I want to take one of the movie theaters out by throwing something at the screen or cutting it open or something or damaging the place? No, I love the movie theaters because it's a total focus chamber. It's not like a isolation tank by any means. Although I do want to do that so bad. So if Mr. Rogan is around and somehow he hears about this through the internet, somehow I'm using my mind meld, I want to get in that isolation tank. But it is it's my church in a way. I mean, I grew up in a very religious family, and I kind of drifted away from that when I left home. But it still became my place to focus and just relax and feel comforted, because my mom took me to all kinds of movies, and so I associate the movie theater with comfort, with home, with great memories. And it took a few years for me there in the mid-2000s to stop getting so angry at people who kept pulling out their phones at all the time. Seems like that's happening less and less, or as I've just gotten used to it, I'm not even noticing. I even remember late 2000s, people were vaping in movie theaters because, hey, it was legal. It wasn't smoking. Well, they cut that out too. I have a vape here myself. Legal. Seriously. Legal, plain stuff. I don't, because I'm not into breaking the law. I'm not. But don't pay attention to that look. Wow, I've really talked a lot about The Hunt without saying much at all, huh? I'm trying to think of other moments from the movie that stuck out, other than the graphic violence, the ham-fisted stereotypes, the misguided ending, and the muddled message that came out of the misguided ending, and the middle of the film, which felt like it cut to a flashback and then another flashback. I felt like they had cut the guts out because they were too scared. I mean, if somebody wants to go after a particular group of people, just do it and deal with the consequences. Because what did they gain out of this? They're not going to make any money, and they wouldn't have, even if what was going on in this country and this world right now wasn't going on. It wouldn't make any money because it's just not that good of a film. And it doesn't. It's not great satire. It's failed satire, and it's also not the other thing, which could have been preaching to the choir. I saw this documentary, No Safe Spaces, that came out only in certain movie theaters, and because I was interested in it, and with the unlimited movie membership, I can see anything. So I've seen films from China, India, Philippines, Korea, Japan, and then documentaries, and then certain art films that no one's ever heard of before. There's this film called Clemency, starring Alfred Woodard, which came out at Christmas time, and I don't know anybody who's seen it but me, and I went to the movie theater to see it. It is a very depressing film. But as a lover of Korean cinema, I think if you're a Korean movie fan, check out Clemency. I would also check out the movie The Executioner, which is a Korean film. Whoa. I mean, if you're talking about death penalty movies, The Executioner is still pretty much head and shoulders above Clemency, but Clemency, it was powerful. It hit hard. And I'm surprised it just went nowhere. Some films are like that. I'm lucky. I'm lucky about a lot of things. I know that, but I'm lucky to live in New York because we get those films that most people don't get because a lot of films don't make it. Although I'm hoping that changes a little bit because I think they've made some miscalculations on how big certain films are. And I think the movie studios have made deals with like other companies to show their films. And I know they have. I've read it on Deadline.com. I mean, it's not like a hidden message or anything. They that's what they do. Oh no. Uh-oh. Wait. Oh, okay. I'm looking at an email about one of my movie chains, and you know why they're writing everyone right now. Everything's pretty much the same as it always has been. There's, I'm going to the movies tomorrow. In other words, but that sidetracked me. Why did I open my email when I'm talking to you? Oh, I think that I'm done with the hunt for now. I might come up with something later, but I'm actually pleased that this stream went well. Much better than the last few times. At least I hope so. I'm looking forward to doing this again. If I could do this every day, and I have like an hour or 2 or 3, and I do. Most people do. How many hours do we waste on cable news networks or just news or looking at mindless things to stay distracted? If you just give up a couple of those like I did, and it was hard. It's hard. I mean, it takes 3 weeks basically for a habit to kick in. And I had to really just change a lot of my lifestyle because, I mean, I was put back on my heels from the losses in my family. And it actually put me so far off track that I had to re-examine my life and to find a new path because the path that I was on was not a good path to go on. In terms of just isolation and staying away from the world and, PTSD and all that kind of stuff. But I got over it through a lot of hard work. And I say I got over it, but I really didn't get completely over it yet. That's why I'm here talking to you. I'm not going to talk to you about every problem I have, but I enjoy being able to talk uninterrupted. I think that's what a lot of people who do broadcasting love. They love to be able to talk uninterrupted, and they love to be able to talk in a way so people you don't see them and they're like, oh, rolling their eyes, or if you want to shut this off, you may have shut it off already and you're not listening to this, and then fuck you. No, just I don't even know if that's gonna. I mean, like I said, this is not for money. It's for love. No one's gonna make any money off of this. Joe Rogan is right. If you won't do it for free, you're doing it for the money. And he was talking about comedy, and this was years ago. And he's not saying you don't earn money. You shouldn't earn money. He's saying that, but if you come to a thing and you do it, and you won't do it for free ever, then you're only doing it for the money. And if you're only doing it for the money, then you're not really doing it for the art. And then your art suffers if it ever was art to begin with. So I have no choice but to make this free. But I don't have to do. I mean, but I'm not forcing myself. I guess this year I said to myself, I've said, huh? And it's time. It's time to reevaluate. And okay, what does that mean? And you just have to seriously take a deep look at yourself and be totally honest with yourself. And I'm at a loss for words because it's hard to describe what it's like when you're totally honest with yourself. And I mean, just in your head, you say it in your head, And you're like, yeah, you know it's true. You're this, and you've done this, and you believe this and this, and or whatever. My issues weren't a belief issue. It was other things, but it was things that everyone goes through. I mean, everyone goes through family problems and deaths in the family and stuff like that. So, and just everyone handles it differently. Yeah, the hunt. That was the reason why I did this, and I've spoken for 7 hours, and I think I talked about the hunt for like 30 minutes of it. But this is the first stream that I've been able to do from beginning to end without any major problems. So that means the next time, be a little bit more focused. I'll probably write a few more notes, have a few more things to say, be a bit more pointed. Although I do love being able to go off on tangents and sometimes forgetting my train of thought. That's just how people are, right? You get to see everything about them. Let them talk for a while, keep talking. You kind of get some insight into them. I mean, I know I touched on issues that I said I would never touch on. The things about with race and politics and all that kind of stuff. I certainly have my opinions on them, and I certainly am angry at many things that our government is up to. But I've been very upset about the things our government is up to for a long, long time, long before Republican was office, or it didn't matter who was in office. That's kind of what I hope people will get back to eventually. That that's just it's how it is. People are corrupt, and there's a lot of corruption throughout the government, state, local, city, federal. It doesn't matter. When you get someone in office, there's going to be some form of corruption. And I wish people would have an honest conversation about that, like literally honest conversation. It's the only way that we can get through things, right? Because, I mean, Dave Chappelle is right. We're getting a really good look at each other. And it's time to really, have a two-way conversation about things. Because there comes a point where each of us plays a part in where we ended up. And that could be in just a relationship or a family thing or political thing or whatever. Somehow, something you did or something I did played a part. Now, you can get into semantics about who was worse than whom. But until everyone can say, hey, you know what? I'm a bit responsible for this. Just admitting that, and it could be, in a fight you would have with your significant other, admitting you're wrong, no matter how painful it feels, that allows you to actually break through. It allows you to break free, and it allows you to, it allows your partner to loosen up and say, oh, you know what? You're right. I had a part to play in this as well. And that's usually how you solve problems. Especially on a micro level in relationships, you have to talk. You have to be completely honest, and you have to sit there and talk. And it's painful and it's uncomfortable because you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm saying this. I've been thinking this for years, but I have never said it. And then when you do, you're like, why did I not say this years ago? You know how many times? And this is nothing. This is not a new thought. You know how many times you think, man, I just don't think I need to be around these friends anymore. I don't need to be doing this anymore. I think that everyone is, these friends are just crazy, and I need to start a new life. And everyone has these thoughts of radical change, and then they end up doing or saying things they may not want to have said or have done. And that's kind of where we are today. It's a bit chaotic in every aspect. I'm not talking about like Dow Jones or whatever, although I do pay attention to these things. As it's becoming clear that I kind of know a little more about politics, and I actually think that this is what my friends wanted me to talk about more than anything, because I have a different take than most people on some of the things that went on in this country since 2016. Well, summer 2015, I guess, is when the escalator dissension happened. And I may work myself up to that. But I think a lot of people are talking about that right now. And so the other thing that I love more than anything political is movies. And it just so happens that today's movie was very political. And they failed at making a point. And if you're going to have satire or attempt it, you got to have a point. And I don't know what the point was other than a nihilist is the only way to get out of this. Only way to get out of this. And what does that mean? We're going to get the Joker? What time is it? Wow, it's almost 11:30, which means that I'm going to sign off now. I think I've done about an hour and 45 minutes here, and wow, it started at 4, so 7.5 hours. I'm learning. You get about 100 minutes of the 7 hours, and it's a bit rambling, I know, but I'm actually very excited because I was able to do it. I mean, the things I had to buy, the stuff I've had to read, the adjustments I've had to make, all these things are just, it's overwhelming. But finally, it seems like I got it together, and it's looking good. So I'll be doing live streams on my Korean Cinegeek channel, and I'll also be doing live streams here, and I won't be talking about Korean movies here that much. It'll inevitably come up. But I'll also be talking about other things that bug me. I mean, even stuff about my personal life, about my day. This is like a vlog, I guess, if I'm going back to the old school vlogs. But I'm not going to carry a camera around and do a live, oh, this is me, look at me walking around. I'm not going to eat and tell you what I'm eating and show you the ingredients and that kind of stuff. This is not me. I just like to talk. And sometimes I'll get around to some very good ideas, and sometimes I'll strike upon something that I find interesting, and sometimes I'll forget what the hell I'm saying because my mind is trying to think of 2 or 3 other subjects. All right. Well, it seems like there's 2 people watching this now, and that's 2 more than I thought because my girlfriend's not home, so it's not her that's watching. I have an idea of who's watching. Hello to whoever's out there. Thanks for listening to this weird rant. It's not even a rant. I'm going to go. Nah, there was some, I'm sure, in this hour and 45 minutes that I didn't clarify points that I should have clarified because I kind of dropped them or anything. But, the reason I want to live stream more than anything is because I am very impatient. And when I started my Korean Cinegeek channel, I know video editing and audio editing software, and I spent countless hours editing and putting together and scoring these movies and these videos, and it just took it was too hard. And then then I went to Hawaii actually, and then I just lost track of the channel until Parasite came out, and that had his own host of problems. The computer crashed and all that kind of stuff. But now that I got this up, now that I'm live streaming, I don't have to worry about editing. I just talk, and it's up. And I'm learning how to do the OBS software, switching back and forth. That's pretty much all I need to do. If I'm showing like a 5-second clip of something. And by the way, that's a good piece of advice. Don't go more than 10 seconds. 9 seconds max on any kind of audio or video clip you wanna mention, and don't use music that is owned by someone else because they'll cut you down immediately, as well as they should. Because if you're gonna be a content creator, create content. Create this, this horrible. If there's some off rhythm stuff in here, and eventually I'm going to get my keyboard in here so I can have it and play around. I like to have everything available to me so I can just create and talk and think and come up with some new stuff, and then I can look back at it and go, oh, that was an interesting thing I said, although it was stupid, but somehow I think there's something in there, because really I'm not an expert on anything. I know movies. I wouldn't say I'm an expert because, there are some people. I mean, Martin Scorsese Spike Lee, Bong Joon-ho, you got these, and Catherine Bigelow, it didn't matter. All these people, they have such deep, deep, deep knowledge of films. A lot of them like films that I'm like, oh, I can't stand it. I would watch like the first 10 minutes of a Scorsese recommended film, and I'm like, oh, geez. It's when you learn that people that you love as filmmakers, you may not love what they love. It's like a filter. Like the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds was, when that came out, it was a response to, I believe, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I don't like Pet Sounds. I don't really like the Beach Boys. I can appreciate Brian Wilson's genius and his harmonies and his complexities. But wouldn't it be nice to I just, it's like surfing, and I know the Beatles have I Want to Hold Your Hand and all that kind of stuff, but as a response, you're like, okay, well, if that person is really inspired by the Beatles, I guess the harmonies are close, but it's a very different sound, which is kind of how it is, because you're filtering the Beatles' influences through Brian Wilson and the rest of the Beach Boys. I seem to have a better luck with authors. I found two of my favorite, they're tied for my favorite authors, and I found them through recommendations from other writers from books I would read at the library. I would go to the library, just pick a book at random. Sometimes if I liked the cover, I would read it. If it was good, I would read the whole thing, and sometimes they would say at the end, hey, you should check out this guy, or thanks to this author, and then I would look for that author, and as it turns out, two of them ended up being, I've read everything they've written. I'm currently reading the latest book from one of them. So I think I have better luck with books because I do believe I'm into the crime genre, but not in a, let's see, like Red Harvest of Dashiell Hammett, that kind of noir kind of thing. But not noir, I mean, neo-noir and very, very dark stuff. But very fascinating. I guess Girl with the Dragon Tattoo would be an example of something that's considered dark crime thriller. And I would actually recommend seeing the non-American version with Noomi Rapace. I think that's how you say her name, as Lisbeth Salander. Amazing actress. I mean, David Fincher's a great filmmaker, but it felt a bit cold, the American remake, which is why they didn't make the sequel. They kind of made I don't even consider that a sequel. Whatever that girl with something came out, I think, at the beginning of last year, and it went away as quickly as it arrived because it was bad. It was just incoherent and boring. And so sad that you can get such great source material, such a fantastic character in Lisbeth Salander, and they just really made it boring. I mean, I understand that, a lot of stuff's in her head, but David Fincher couldn't crack the code, and the latest film couldn't crack the code. But man, the trilogy it was the original trilogy after he wrote the trilogy and they made the movies. Those films, yeah, they're subtitled. So what? Subtitles is a big issue for me, and something that I'm working on, actually. I'll probably get into a lot more detail about that later because I'm still in the earliest stages of it. But I think I have a new way to make subtitles more appealing to Western audiences. And I'm talking about where you place them, what the color is, when and where you use them. And I think that that's the next frontier for film, because I know we're going to have to be more connected in some ways. And I think being connected on social media has its good points. It's mostly bad, though, in my opinion. But film, I'm smiling because I remember when I lived in Chicago, there was an art house movie theater that was on, Broadway and something, or Clark and something. It was, I don't remember, Landmark Cinemas, I believe. And every film, it started off with the language of cinema is universal. And they said it in several different languages. And it's absolutely true. I mean, Joker is a decidedly American film, but it resonated with everyone around the world. And it didn't even play in China, which is, I can understand why it didn't, but I'm like, whoa, it made that much money. It didn't play in China. And then Parasite, a very Korean movie. The more I watch it, the more I realize how close it is to Korean society and how personal it is for Bong Joon-ho. In fact, he said in his acceptance speech that the more personal it gets, the more universal it is. And when you see Parasite, and I mean when you see it, you have to see that. You can't just not see Parasite. That's crazy. It's crazy. You'll see what I'm talking about. Something that's incredibly personal to someone, if it's done right and done with a little distance, meaning that there's a lot of autobiographical scripts that I've read over the years. It's clear the person went through whatever's in the script. And when you try to talk to them about it, they get very defensive because it actually happened to them, which means it probably just happened to them recently, which means they probably shouldn't be writing about it. When you're dealing with tragedy or tragic issues, and I have quite a few, I've only written about 1.5 of them in my scripts. You got to have distance because the story has to come first. The visuals mean nothing if the story doesn't last. That's why there are some films that have horrible special effects or just not so good special effects compared to how they are today, but people still watch them because the movies themselves are great. The stories, the narratives, the characters, the dialogue, those are all great. But sometimes films just look wonderful. CGI is a marvel, the way they can make things look as real as possible. But all that's done is made everyone go, I don't believe anything is real now. It's all CGI, and a lot of it isn't. But it adds a bit of an artificialness to it, almost a video game quality that's not really the best for every film. You need to have more than just action set pieces, which is what I think the problem with John Wick 3 was. It's like John Wick 3 is sort of like a betweener. You know, John Wick 2 ended with a great cliffhanger, and then he just kept running in number 3. And you're like, okay, well, what's he after exactly, other than survival? See, it's kind of the same problem that The Hunt did. It's like, other than survival, why is John Wick doing this? Why is Crystal not making a stand and not even really curious as to why she got picked? She basically got told why she was picked at the end of the film. Everyone else is like really curious as to why they're there. In fact, the Crystal is about ready to end someone, and the guy, what is his name, Dawn, with the 3 question marks on IMDb, he says, no, don't kill him yet, don't kill her yet. I want to ask her, and then the Crystal says, all right, I guess you said I killed the other ones. I'm not, all right, you want to ask her anything about why you're here or anything? And of course he does, but she doesn't ask. She's not interested. She's got a great line after that when she says, oh, do you think you should be given mercy because of your sex? And of course the woman on the ground has to say no because that's her principles, and she pays for it. But it was like, yeah, she really needed to have a point of view about something other than living, because living, of course, is just a survival instinct. That's why some people don't like the term hero. If somebody like breaks their leg on a ski slope and they have to crawl for a mile, it's a survival instinct. It's not really heroic because you're trying to stay alive. I mean, it was you that decided to get on a pair of skis before you were ready and go downhill and break your leg. So it's a heroism of your own making, which is not heroism at all. And I'm still going. No, it's okay. So it's 11:40, getting close to 2 hours. I'm looking at it right now. I see it's close to 2 hours. I'm pausing for a second just to look at myself. That's going to be fun to watch in a few seconds. Because what will happen is I'll get quiet and just stare at the camera, and I'll stare at him. And then you'll stare at me, staring at me. You see how weird I am? This is the kind of stuff that I play with. But, you know, it's being able to open your mind like that to the absurd and the ridiculous and the strange and sometimes scary in order to find like really, really, really good stuff. Here's the moment. It's like a triangle. I'm looking at myself, looking left, you're looking at me, and now I'm looking at you. It's very strange. I think I mentioned in the previous stream, I love meta, talking about, people, hey, all of a sudden I'm in a movie. I don't know what's going on. That kind of thing. I love meta references when done properly, not overdone. Sometimes comedies, they get it wrong. Deadpool got it right. Whew, did it get it right? Not the second one. Second one was good in its own way, but the first one was, mwah. When it comes to the irreverence, they had the tone down from beginning to end. It's a beautiful thing. 21 Jump Street, that and 22 Jump Street, they had the tone down perfect too in terms of the comedy and the action. They had the perfect balance. So let's see. Tomorrow, well, I had tickets to see a movie with my girlfriend, but we got an email saying that unfortunately that movie hasn't been canceled. For reasons that everyone knows if you're watching this in March of 2020 or with any time in a year from around that, a year backwards or forwards. So I don't know if I'm seeing anything tomorrow. If I do, it's going to be a movie that I probably have already seen. I like to see sometimes films twice, 3 times so I can, like The Rhythm Section. Rhythm Section is a movie that came out end of January. Starred Blake Lively and Jude Law. And I thought it was wonderful. I've always had my eye on Reed Morano. She's the director. No, she wasn't the DP on that one. But she was a DP. In fact, she was a DP that we were talking to shoot my first feature. It didn't work out. Jennifer Morrison, who ended up becoming an Academy Award-winning cinematographer, she was the other person that I had written and asked if she would do it, and so she read the script, and it was fun times. But Reed Morano, man, she's great, and she really put that movie together well. And as I said, I don't read reviews, so I went and saw it, and I was like, man, this is a great time. Blake Lively is great. I mean, she is just getting beat up. She is working hard to try to win. And that's what you want to see out of a protagonist. You want to see them fight, and you want to see them have a reason to fight. For Blake Lively in that movie, it was revenge at first, and then it became something else at the end. But that film I saw it once, and I loved it. And then I went and checked the box office. I read the box office every weekend. I read the box office returns every weekend. I want to see, what films are big, what's big, what's not, what's hot, what's not. Because although you can't really adjust your writing to tailor your writing to what's going on in the moment, because it means you're going to be a couple years late. As I said, it takes a long time to get a film to go from script to production. But sometimes it could happen. All right. That's it for me. I'm going to quit before the 2-hour mark. I wanted to see if I could do it. I can do it. I talked about a lot of things. I talked about a lot of other things that I can talk about later because I deleted them all because it was horrible. It was either like no sound or it kept cutting out every 7 seconds because I had hot keys. But I'm a hot mess is what it is. And I'm also, like, my voice is going soft on me. I hope you like my jug. And no, I don't get paid by these people. I just happen to have a jug because it's easier for me to carry this around than to pour it into water glasses and wash hands and, better safe than sorry about everything. Everyone washes their hands normally anyway, but not every time they go into another room like everyone does now and with hand sanitizer. Oh. This is going to be like the greatest advice ever for people who are watching this a year from now. But I have a very good friend who's a doctor. 2 very good friends. They're both doctors. But she was talking about, washing your hands and how you have to moisturize. Because if you wash your hands and use the hand sanitizer, your skin's going to get cracked and dry, and the good bacteria that's on your hands is going to go away. think it happened to Howie Mandel. He can't even use hand sanitizer anymore. His hands are ruined. But she said if you're going to use it and wash, make sure you moisturize because your hands are going to get cracked and messed up. I found it to be one of the better tips that's come about recently because everything has been so confusing for everyone for many different reasons. I want to thank you for watching, and I know that the more I get into this, the crazier it can be. Sometimes I'll talk about just don't get me started on Rolling Stones 100 greatest albums of the year. Oy. Boy, I know that my girlfriend, when she hears that, if she watches this, she's gonna roll her eyes too, or more importantly, she'll be like, "Oh, please talk about it there. Just I don't want to hear another sad tale about how your band isn't in the top 100." I'm making it seem like my girlfriend doesn't like to hear me talk. She does. She listens to me all the time. We laugh all the time. But hamster energy. Time to end the stream. Have a great night. I'll be back probably tomorrow. This is fun. This requires me to just have fun and be creative in my head and just turn it on and talk. Wonderful. Good night.